Have you ever felt like you're constantly on edge, waiting for the next disaster to strike? Do you find yourself replaying painful memories over and over, unable to escape them even in your quietest moments? Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive, too reactive, or that you just need to let go of the past. But what if there's something deeper happening? Something that traditional explanations of trauma don't quite capture. Today, we're diving into a condition that affects millions but remains misunderstood and often misdiagnosed. This is about the invisible wounds that shape how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we move through the world. Understanding this could be the first step toward finally making sense of experiences that have felt confusing and isolating for far too long. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD, is fundamentally different from the PTSD most people are familiar with. While traditional PTSD typically develops after a single traumatic event, like a car accident, natural disaster, or violent attack, CPTSD emerges from prolonged, repeated trauma that occurs over months or years. It's the result of ongoing abuse, neglect, captivity, or chronic exposure to threatening situations where escape feels impossible.
This distinction is crucial because it explains why some trauma survivors struggle with symptoms that go far beyond flashbacks and nightmares.
The origins of CPTSD often trace back to childhood, though it can develop at any age. Children who grow up in environments where they experience chronic emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or severe neglect are particularly vulnerable. Imagine a child whose parent is unpredictably violent, loving one moment and terrifying the next. That child learns the world is fundamentally unsafe and that even those who should protect them cannot be trusted. The developing brain adapts to this dangerous environment, creating patterns of thinking and responding that may help survival in childhood, but create profound difficulties in adulthood. But childhood isn't the only pathway to CPTSD. Adults can develop it through prolonged domestic violence, being held in captivity, experiencing ongoing workplace abuse, living in war zones, or enduring human trafficking. What these situations share is the combination of repeated trauma with an inability to escape. The victim feels trapped, powerless, and completely at the mercy of their abuser or circumstances. This sense of inescapable horror fundamentally alters how the brain processes threat and safety. The symptoms of CPTSD extend far beyond what we see in traditional PTSD. Yes, there are flashbacks, nightmares, and hypervigilance, but CPTSD brings additional layers of suffering that affect the core of who someone is. One of the most devastating aspects is emotional dysregulation. People with CPTSD often experience intense emotions that feel overwhelming and uncontrollable. They might go from calm to rageful in seconds, or from functioning well to completely shutting down emotionally. These aren't choices or character flaws, but neurological responses shaped by years of trauma. Negative self-perception is another hallmark of CPTSD. Survivors often carry deep shame and believe they are fundamentally broken, worthless, or deserving of bad treatment. This isn't just low self-esteem, but a profound sense of being damaged at their core. They might think things like, "I'm unlovable," "something is wrong with me," or "I deserved what happened." These beliefs were often instilled by abusers who blamed victims for the abuse, and they become internalized as absolute truths. Relationship difficulties plague many people with CPTSD. After years of trauma in relationships, trusting others feels dangerous. Some survivors avoid close relationships entirely, keeping everyone at arm's length to prevent further hurt. Others swing between desperate clinging and pushing people away, trapped in patterns of attachment that feel chaotic and confusing.
They might test people constantly, expecting betrayal, or they might become so accommodating that they lose all sense of their own needs and boundaries.
Dissociation is a common but often misunderstood symptom of CPTSD. During overwhelming trauma, the mind sometimes protects itself by disconnecting from the experience. This can continue long after the trauma ends, with survivors feeling detached from their bodies, their emotions, or reality itself. They might describe feeling like they're watching their life from outside their body, or like they're moving through the world in a fog. Some people lose chunks of time or struggle to remember important parts of their past. Physical symptoms are also remarkably common. The body keeps score of trauma, and people with CPTSD often experience chronic pain, gastrointestinal problems, headaches, and fatigue. The constant state of hypervigilance keeps the nervous system activated, flooding the body with stress hormones that take a toll on physical health. Many survivors develop autoimmune conditions, heart problems, or other stress-related illnesses. Perhaps one of the most challenging aspects of CPTSD is how it affects someone's sense of self. While people with traditional PTSD typically have a sense of who they were before the trauma, those with CPTSD often feel they never had a stable identity to begin with. If the trauma began in childhood, they may have no memory of feeling safe, secure, or worthy. Their entire personality developed around surviving trauma, leaving them confused about who they really are underneath all the defensive strategies. The triggers for CPTSD symptoms can be incredibly subtle and confusing. Unlike PTSD triggers that often relate directly to the traumatic event, CPTSD triggers can include things like certain tones of voice, feeling controlled, perceiving disapproval, or even positive experiences like intimacy or success. These triggers activate the old survival responses, leaving the person feeling terrified, enraged, or shut down without always understanding why. Many people with CPTSD struggle with what's called emotional flashbacks. Unlike visual flashbacks, where someone relives a specific memory, emotional flashbacks involve suddenly experiencing the intense feelings from past trauma without necessarily remembering what caused them. Someone might suddenly feel the terror, helplessness, or shame they felt as an abused child, believing these feelings are about their current situation when they're actually echoes from the past. The diagnostic journey for CPTSD is often long and frustrating. The condition isn't included in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, though it is recognized in the World Health Organization's International Classification of Diseases. This means many mental health professionals in the United States aren't trained to recognize it. Survivors are often misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, or anxiety when their symptoms actually reflect complex trauma. Understanding CPTSD is essential because it changes the treatment approach. Standard PTSD treatments that focus primarily on processing specific traumatic memories may not be sufficient. CPTSD treatment needs to address emotion regulation, building a coherent sense of self, developing relationship skills, and learning to feel safe in one's own body. Therapies like dialectical behavior therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, internal family systems, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy can all be helpful, often used in combination. Recovery from CPTSD is possible, but it's rarely linear. It involves slowly learning that the world isn't always dangerous, that not everyone will hurt you, and that you're worthy of care and respect. It means developing new neural pathways that support safety and connection rather than hypervigilance and defense. For many survivors, it's about grieving the childhood or the life they should have had while building something new from where they are now. The path to healing often includes learning to recognize and manage triggers, developing healthy coping strategies to replace destructive ones, building supportive relationships, and gradually processing traumatic memories in a safe, therapeutic environment. It requires tremendous courage to face pain that was once too overwhelming to bear, and it demands patience as old patterns slowly give way to healthier ones. If what you've heard today resonates deeply, if it feels like someone finally put words to experiences you thought were yours alone, know that you're not broken beyond repair. CPTSD is a natural response to unnatural circumstances. Your symptoms are adaptations that once helped you survive, and with proper support, you can develop new ways of being that allow you to thrive.
Healing is possible. Understanding is powerful. And you deserve the same compassion and care you've likely spent years giving to everyone but yourself. This is CPTSD, the trauma that too few people explain but too many people carry. And bringing it into the light is where transformation begins.